So back when I was really feeling that space in my mind, body, and soul of like I felt abandoned and all this, I would go on YouTube and I would just type up like, WWF, WWE, women wrestler, done dirty, anything to find somebody that did a shoot interview that was a woman that was in the business that was on television at some point, whether it was WCW or at that time, because TNA still was building up. So I didn't even think about TNA, but I was like WCW, Mexico, WWE, WWF. And I really only found Chyna doing these vlogs where she was, like, talking about, like, Triple H and this and that, like, it was, just real. It wasn't a shoot video, it was just her filming herself in pain, dude, trying to tell her side of the story. And that was the only content I could find that made me feel not alone, that made me feel understood. And then that's when I reached out to her and we would talk and share. And that's when I was like, holy crap, China understands me. Freaking China? The freaking China? China. Not only with like the business, but like how she had the porno, how she was on Surreal Life. And I was friends, we lost contact now with Adrienne Curry, who was on America's Top Model, and she was in that house with China. And her and I would talk about the business and how toxic it is and how the wrestling business is. I remember one time she was like F WWE because she knew because of freaking Joni, man. And so I don't talk about it enough. I just should because it just doesn't come up. It's not like a secret, but man, China was there for me. It was brief, but she was there for me. Our energies aligned and it when we would connect, it was organic. But then when I would step back after the conversations and reflect, I was like, this is China. This is effing China. And she knows, man. She gets it. So, yeah, dude, that's my China story. I wish I could have been in touch with her more because I was even in touch with her to the point where right before she moved back to California to live, I believe, with the manager, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
and everything what
Yeah.
followed.
Yeah.
So I was in touch with her till that, like right before she came back to California. And I do not talk about, again, not because it's a secret, but because it just doesn't come up. Because honestly, China and Francine are the only people in the business that I feel know what I've gone through.
It's fair. One of them's not here to talk about their side of it, so that's yeah, that's a fair assessment. I could tell you this. So I interviewed China the night she stepped off the plane coming back from Japan. Uh, the night she literally was back in the US for the first time in I think it was 5 years or something. And it was a short interview. It was maybe 10, 12 minutes. But that manager was such a piece of shit and really did her dirty in some ways. Well, some ways I think it's been documented how he's done her dirty. But that night after we did the interview, he asked how we could get her on TMZ if possible. And I had to call somebody that I knew who was a TMZ photog to give him the tip of where China was going to be the next day to get her a little bit of press. But it was a mess at first. So I hope the China that you got to talk to had no like filter because it seemed like the guy she was with, that producer, manager, whatever, was a puppet master of sorts and was real bad. Now, I'll also throw this in there too. It seems like they're really trying to control the narrative as it relates to China the last couple of years versus even the first few years after she passed away. They're really trying to spin it back to she's the trailblazer, she's this, and she's that. And that was like virtually gone from about 2001 to, I don't know, 2021, 2022. Now it's China's trailblazer. But I'm sure in your conversations with her, she talked about how she was persona non grata.
Here's the thing. This is why when whoever handles her Instagram, or excuse me, her Twitter now, I never put over when they're like, China for the Hall of Fame. I'm like, one time I wrote the person, do you really feel like that's what she wanted? Because what the person I talked to, no, not at all. And they told me yes. And then I thought, okay, who am I? I was just like, I don't know her like that well. I just like had my conversations and my connection, right? But based on my experiences with her, it just didn't seem right. She don't like them. She doesn't want them to profit off of her even more.
Yep.
But whoever handles her Twitter assured me that she did want that. Maybe she did. Maybe she changed her mind, or maybe she had a change of heart. But it still bothers me to this day, and I never retweet, I never interact when it's like China for Hall of Fame, because much like the Hollywood Walk of Fame over here, you buy your star or someone buys it for you. It's not awarded to you. It's politics. And that's not to take away from people. Let's say, for example, in TNA, the beautiful people. Like, they deserve that recognition. I love the beautiful people. They're like one of my favorite tag teams out there. So that's why I got to put them over. So like, it's not to take away from people like that and like whatever. I'm not saying that. It is deserved. And everyone that's been in the Hall of Fame that was well deserving at Beth Phoenix, like another one. Like, I'm not saying it's because of politics they got it. No. But I'm just saying, like, when people like that finally get it, I'm always one to be like all about it and like retweets USA about it, because it is long awaited and deserved. But anytime, even though on paper, China does deserve that, just let it go, dude. Because I really feel that with her experience with the business and with Hollywood and that business, she just wanted peace. And when you want peace and you reach out to peace and that kind of a life, there's a lot of work you have to do. And I just don't feel like the person she was working to be cared enough to be like rallying up fans to be behind this movement that's like, get her in. It seems like I'm not trying to be a bitch. It seems like a kind of, again, I feel bad saying this, but I had the shot. Remember I said TMI? I feel like it's an ego-driven thing. It's some kind of weird ego-driven thing, and maybe it's to keep her legacy alive. I don't know, it just rubs, what do you think? It just rubs me
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, look, I mean, I don't think girls today are getting into business because of China like they might have been 20 years ago because of China. You know what I'm saying? Now there are girls that are getting in the business that are 17, 18 years old are getting in the business because of the girls that broke in via the early days of the rebranded NXT. China has essentially been wiped out of existence to anybody who's been watching wrestling for the last 20 plus years. I agree with you. I don't think she would be a person who would want to be in the Hall of Fame, because the person that she considered the love of her life is running the show. And I think that that would still be a very bitter pill to swallow. And now that we all know all of the stories of how she found out about their relationship and how he feels about the pornography that she did, and, let's put this out there too. And I mean, I love X-Pac. X-Pac's awesome, but he didn't get removed from the Hall of Fame for his
Truth.
part in the video that's out there. But still, China, even though, I mean, I know she did the one, but then she did more. X-Pac is in the one. He didn't get removed from the Hall of Fame. So I mean, I think because of who's in charge, I do not think she would be involved. Now, maybe a licensing deal, you'd see her China action figure, you'd see something like that. Maybe I could see that. I do not think the Hall of Fame. It's the same thing we're seeing now. Demolition is finally getting their just desserts from WWE, possibly in the Hall of Fame. Bill Eadie sued Vince McMahon in the early 90s. He was a part of that whole concussion lawsuit from 10 years ago. They finally signed them to a Legends deal this last year. So, I mean, I think eventually maybe she would have signed that, but I don't think the Hall of Fame and everything that goes with it is kissing the ring to one guy right now. And I don't think it would have happened based off of everything that I had read, everything I had heard, talking to her in 20, whatever the hell it was, 16, 17, whenever she came back from Japan. I mean, shit, she had a great career in Japan.
So
It was awesome.
amazing. And I would chat with her when she was in Japan. And that gave me hope. And it's crazy because it made me just feel even like it made me want to go to I've always wanted to go wrestle in Japan, first of all. Not many people know that. From when I first started, why? Who did I say were my first trainers? Rocky Romero, Ricky Reyes, dude.
Yeah,
So like they're amazing. If you guys don't know them, look them up, dude. Like it's good wrestling. The Havana Pitbulls,
they
and
were
they had
awesome.
solo careers as well. Like, oh my gosh. So I've always been aware. I used to train at the Inoki Dojo here. That's where I met Samoa Joe. That's where I met Brian Danielson. Like that's where I met all these freaking people. Like so Japan was already on my radar.
I
And
could see your cat. I'm sorry to interrupt. I could see you, and I will apologize if I interrupt. I
oh,
won't just
oh my goodness, the
I won't
Chester.
just interrupt you without apologizing. People in the comments,
Can you just
but
let me talk?
but I would see your character in Japan being super over because of how they get behind a lot of supernatural. Just I wouldn't even say gimmicks, just concepts. So I could see your character being super over.
There's times when I would go audition when they would come down from Japan to the Inoki Dojo, and, my Desire character, which was my first, like, wrestling character. Oh my gosh, I had to burp, hold on. So
Gonna keep that in and make it even bigger when it's
well,
for
usually I do. Here's the thing, one day we'll probably get one on here, but I could make Booger from Revenge of the Nerds proud, but besides the point.
what a
Um
reference.
oh, yeah. So, with Japan, like when my character I first had Desire, like I said, I had the Luna veins according to freaking, uh, Romero. It's like I always had this spin of like this darkness. So even though I wasn't like a vampire, I was always like throwing that energy over there. And what you're saying is totally on board because I feel like people that were in charge of those things knew that, and that's why I kept getting seen by these people from Japan. It just wasn't meant, it was my path was my path. But it's so crazy because when I was at one of those, and I think about this actually a lot. When I was at one of those audition shows for Japan at the Inoki Dojo here in LA when it was here, it was a big deal that China and X-Pac were coming down because this was after the tape. This was I forget what else was going on in their timeline. I think she had already done Surreal Life and all that because the tape came out after that, right? I think.
So I don't remember. First of all, Surreal Life was an awesome show. Number
Oh my
one,
gosh, yes.
I loved the season that she was on, the season that Maven was on were awesome, right? But
I
the
love that
tape,
franchise in general.
yeah, the tape itself, I don't remember if it was before or after. I really don't, but nonetheless, impactful.
Yeah.
If you've seen it for multiple reasons.
I've never seen it. I don't wanna see
Well, I
it,
mean,
but,
listen, I mean,
you're a
had,
guy.
had we, it was more research purposes. We'll put it that
Okay.
way.
But the point is, they were still a couple. And something that stood out to me was they were China and X-Pac. Holy crap, they're coming to the dojo. But I'm gonna go ahead and bet they weren't in a good place. And I remember X-Pac didn't even have wrestling boots, and he had to borrow wrestling boots from someone to go out there because he was broke. And that's not a dig on him. That's real life. That's real life. You wanna know probably why freaking Joni was out there doing porn? Because what else is she gonna do that's gonna pay her that much? She's freaking China. And
Right.
then on sets like that, you get professional makeup, there's a professional set, so it feels good, you know? Doesn't feel like someone just has their camcorder and you're da 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 da. So people don't think about those things. They can have their little opinion on it or whatever, but like they don't think about you don't know where she was at, where her soul was at. I don't know where X-Pac was because I don't know him that well. He's always been very, very nice to me. I'm friends with people that are friends with him and they always have nice things to say about him. But like that's something that I randomly think about a lot. I don't know if it was, like, because it was such a real moment, and then when me, Shelly Martinez, Ariel Salinas, has those kind of situations happen. Like, I remember I was at this one show. I used to wrestle every week on Sunday because the wrestling school I was going to here in SoCal, they would have a live stream every Sunday and have, like, a mini show at their place. And to me, if I wasn't booked on that Sunday, I always looked at it as keeping Chris cool, like whatever, had a little storyline. And there was times where the owner's wife of the school, I would have to borrow some of her stuff sometimes because I was a broke ass. And that's when I would reflect on that moment at that show where Joni and X-Pac, everyone was looking with them with stars in their eyes, but the reality was, and it was whispered about because people didn't want to embarrass him, that he had to borrow the boots.
Oh,
So it
wow.
wasn't like people were like gossiping about it. They were like, "Oh man, And so it was a real moment and it's so crazy because that was way before my WWE years and it was such a real moment. And then when I started living that moment, I was just like, man, now I get it. Now I know why it sticks out to me all these years. It's so freaking crazy. And I don't think people stop to think about how that's the business. And there's so many people out there stuck in those moments that even effing China and X-Pac, who seems to be doing really well for himself these days, but it should be talked about not out of shame, but there's so many people who can relate to that vibe and they are crumbling because they feel shame. We've talked about on here before. Shame and how that affects you.